Okay, so we started last week talking about the third verse in the Eishes Chayil, and I'll just say it again. It starts with the Gimel because the Eishes Chayil, if you maybe I should have mentioned this in the beginning and I didn't, or maybe I did mention it, but it's in the order of the Aleph Beis. So we're right now in the verse that begins with the letter Gimel, and it's Gamal Sato Velo Ra Kol Yemei Chayeha, and it translated as um, she treats him with goodness, never evil, all the days of her life. And we spoke about how Rivka, our foremother Rivka, how it related to her and how it related to Tzipporah, the wife of Moshe. And now we're going to talk about the wife of Akiba, whose name was Rachel. Um, because she also represents this verse. So she is the wife of the famous Rabbi Akiva, Rachel, but he wasn't always famous and he wasn't always a rabbi. And she was more famous. I don't know if she was a rabbi, but she was more famous. Um, Her father was one of the wealthiest men in all of Jerusalem. His name was Kalba Savua. So you can imagine her being a young woman was very sought after. Everyone wanted to marry her because if they get that father-in-law, they never have to worry about money their whole life, right? They'd get a good dowry, whatever it's called. Um, so thing is that her father had one of his many workers on his farms and fields, and one of them was this simple shepherd whose I think father was a convert, and his name was Akiba, and he didn't even know how to read, so he was illiterate. And Rachel would speak with him and talk with him, and she realized that he had some very, very good qualities within him. And one of those good qualities was that he was unassuming. He didn't need to be in the center of attention. He didn't need the spotlight. He didn't need everyone, he didn't need everyone to say, me, look here. Um, and she felt that the qualities that he had, if he would only have been privileged to have an education, he would be a great Torah scholar. So she asked him if we get married, if he would marry me, would you be willing to go to learn in the great Yeshiva Academy? And he said, yes, I would. And so they secretly got engaged. Now, meanwhile, all these suitors are coming to, to meet her, to her father. And her father, would bring her and say, come on, Rachel, come here. We'd like to meet this, wonderful young man. And she said, that's really nice, but I'm already taken. And the father was like, what? And he said, yes, I'm already engaged. And they said, to who? To Akiva. I said, well, are you crazy? That's, unlearned shepherd boy. If that's who you want to marry, that's your choice in life. Get out of my house. I don't want to, not going to pay for anything for you ever again. And that's what he did. And she married Akiva in the winter. And Akiva saw in her that she was so like pure and holy, authentic that, she was going to do what's right no matter the cost. And it was cold and wintry, and they had no place to live. I don't know if he was working anymore as a shepherd for the father. It doesn't really say that if he was or wasn't, but I'm assuming that if she was kicked out of the house, I'm assuming he was also kicked out of the job. I don't know. Anyway, but they didn't want to accept any charity. So where do they find a place to live? In a straw storehouse from straw. And they would lie on the straw as beds, and the straw would get all over them. And he would pick the straws out of her hair and say, if I could, I would buy you a Jerusalem of gold. What's a Jerusalem of gold? So that was a golden hairpiece in the shape of Jerusalem, and it had sorry, I go like this and lower. Oh my gosh, that's so weird. Okay, that wasn't supposed to be raising my hand. And it had a lot of like jewels and gems on it. It was a very fancy, I guess, piece in those days.
You said it was a headpiece?
Like a headpiece.
Yeah, a headpiece. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And not just that, but I don't remember in one of our classes we learned a few weeks ago how straw is really an insignificant thing. It kind of just like is
Right.
added to other stuff to make the other thing, to make brick stronger, or maybe it will get mixed in the grain when you're trying to, have grain, you'll get some pieces of straw, and they're kind of like not so valuable. So Akiva, on one hand, he had all these like good characteristical qualities. On the other hand, he was ignorant. So because of that, his like good brain, quote unquote, good brain and straw brain were mixed together. So she was saying, "Oh, you're so ignorant. We need to pluck out the straws from your head. Ignorant part of you, and you need to really build yourself up with good knowledge." It was her mission to help him find Torah, to help him find out how to learn. Now, what's very interesting is it says that she sent him on a mission. So she sent him as it was like he was a messenger of her, and like an emissary of her to go and learn Torah. And that's why he just did whatever she wanted, which was learning Torah, which we'll see soon. So so she felt it was her mission to remove those straws from his head and replace her head, whatever, and replace it with a Jerusalem of gold, too, a head of Torah and spiritual wealth. Now, the Kiva said, "Well, what's going to be? I'm going to go to this yeshiva. I'm 40 years old. I'm going to walk in, and I'm going to be a laughing stock. I'm not going to know which way to turn to hold the book. Even I don't know the letters. They're just going to make fun of me. This is really embarrassing." She said, "You know what? Your grandma has a donkey." And he said, "Yeah, go bring the donkey here." And he brings a donkey, and it was an old donkey, and it had some wounds on its back. And what she did was I don't know exactly, she took water and dirt and put it on the wounds, and she planted in there cress. What's cress? Like a kind of like a grass type of thing. Okay. And she grew, and it grew. It literally, she put the seeds in and it actually grew. And then he said, "Okay, now take the donkey to the market." And he comes and he takes the donkey to the market. And everyone is looking and staring at this wacky donkey that has stuff growing out of its back. And he comes home that day and she says, "Okay, go again tomorrow." And the next day he goes again. And that's day, okay, they already saw the donkey. It wasn't such a, what was those, the freak shows at the circus? It wasn't such a freaky thing to see. And then he went back the next day, and then everyone's used to that donkey. No one could care less anymore. She said the same with you. You're gonna go to the yeshiva. So the first day, people make fun of you. You'll be a laughing stock, or it might look a little bit embarrassing, but they'll get used to you, and then they'll forget about it. And it won't be so bad. Don't be so shameful about it. So he left, and he went to the academy of Rabbi Yehoshua and Rabbi Eliezer. And of course, at first, everyone was dumbfounded that he couldn't even read. Didn't even know the Aleph Beis. And soon enough, people stopped, staring at him. People stopped looking and wondering what's going on over here, and he became the greatest teacher of all time. Okay, till today, in our camp and in Hebrew school, we sing songs of Rabbi Akiva because we have a lot of major lessons that we learn from Rabbi Akiva. So meanwhile, Rachel was at home penniless, and she actually had to do very degrading and menial jobs to keep herself afloat. And for 12 years, he stayed in the yeshiva. She stayed at home, and I guess she already had some children at that point. And after 12 years, he amassed 12,000 students, and he said, "I'm going to come back to Rachel now to show her that mission accomplished." And as he was walking by the house, before he even stepped foot the door, he hears some old neighbor, I'll say, Karen, the quote unquote proverbial Karen, saying, why are you living like this? Why are you living all alone like a widow and your husband's all away? How, get some sense into yourself, you're crazy, basically. And Rachel answered this neighbor, "Well, if Akiva would listen to me, I would be happy if he would learn for another 12 years in the yeshiva." So he didn't even walk through the door, because he knew if he walked in, it would be really hard to leave. And he stepped right back to the yeshiva, and he continued learning. And this time he amassed another 12,000 students. He had a total of 24,000 students. And now he came back home. And as he came, everyone knew the great Rabbi Akiva, and they all, this whole Jerusalem got ready for him and made a big welcoming party for him, including Kalva Savua, her father, who had no clue that this was his estranged son-in-law. And she said, "Oh, Rabbi Akiva, that's my husband." And she ran to go greet him too. Now she didn't have any. Imagine she was living 24 years penniless. She didn't have any nice clothing. And a friend said, change your clothes. We'll lend you some clothing. Look nice. And she said, no, I want to go as I am. And she ran there and she fell at his feet. And the students are, what's this beggar lady doing here? They wanted to push her away. And he said, stop. All that is mine and yours is because of her. And he gave her actually now a real Jerusalem of gold headpiece. Um, and so it's everything we learned today from Rabbi Akiva's wisdom is because she sacrificed so much. She gave up not just of her own, she gave up of her own life, not just that he should learn Torah, but all the Jewish people for so many generations learned so much from Rabbi Akiva, so much so that in the Midrash, there's even a story, I know we've learned it before in our classes, where Moshe, while he's up in heaven, learning the Torah from Hashem, he sees that there's this Rabbi Akiva who's asks questions and answers, explains why there's a dot on top of this letter or why this is like that. He's like, how could this be? But Rabbi Akiva was able to, because he learned so well, he learned the oral Torah so well in the inner dimensions, he was able to learn so much more and teach people so much. Now, if you're familiar with Pirkei Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers, it's part of the Mishnah. When we read it, we usually study it after Passover till Tishrei, till the high holidays. There's we read every week another chapter. There's 6 chapters, and we just every week we read one and then repeat it. And in there, if ethics. So one of the things is who like it says, who is wise, who is strong, one of them is who is wealthy. And Rabbi Akiva answers, one whose wife is beautiful in her deeds, because definitely his wife Rachel was beautiful in deeds, and definitely he respected that and he recognized that within her. So Rachel, she treats him, Rabbi Akiva, with goodness and never evil all the days of her life. So even though it was not easy, it was a struggle, but this is what her dream was, for him to learn Torah, and that's why she married him. So that is.
Didn't her father then, when he found out, brought them back into the family and gave them all his riches
yes. So now he recognized them. Yes.
Them. Yeah.
Yeah, a little late.
Yeah, a little late, but
Sylvia, you're on mute. So if you're trying to speak, both of you.
So I'm trying to figure out how'd she get children? Did they have conjugal visits? Did she go see him?
No, but I think before he left, I'm
okay.
not sure how many children she had, but I think it was for sure more than one, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, that's what I
Unless
thought.
she had more when he came back, it's possible. I don't know. No, but they did not see each other at all during those times. Yeah. Yeah. Very, very, not a very typical or usual story, and not something that a typical woman would sacrifice. Now, as we said, the whole Eishes Chayil, some say, not some say, but they say that also Avram used the Eishes Chayil verses in his eulogy for Sarah. So now we'll talk about Sarah, our foremother, how it's connected to her. So, by the way, hi, Catherine. I don't know if I said hello yet, but I see you're on.
Hi, sorry, I forgot.
No worries, we're recording, so just in case. Okay, so Sarah. So it says that the blessing of wealth is found on the account of somebody's wife. Okay, this is what the Talmud says. Okay, so the merit of the wife is if the husband is wealthy, or the family is wealthy. So the Talmud says, honor and treat your wife well. Not a hard to put 2 and 2 together. Avram received great wealth because of Sarah. So we know that there's this story, I know we discussed it previously in Torah studies, I don't know if this year, but for sure other years, about how there's a famine. They get to the land of Israel, there's a famine, and Sarah and Avram have to go down to Egypt to find some food, because there's no food in Israel. And as they're going down, Avram tells his wife, tell them you're my sister, and then it will be good for me. Now, there's a lot of different explanations what that means, but on the surface of it, it's, hey, you're going to lie and say, oh, and get her in trouble, because if they think that it's his wife, the Egyptians are not are not ethical people, and they'll just kill him and take her to the king, to the Paro, to the Pharaoh. So when I'm saying this, it seems like he doesn't care what happens to her. It's okay if they take you and something happens to you as long as I'm safe and I get my presents. So there's a lot of explanations on it. We've discussed them in the past. So on the surface, we just say, okay, he knew that on account of his wife, on her merits, he'll get gifts, he'll get wealth. What does it really mean? Okay, so Avram and Sarah really they could care less about wealth. Avram's not looking for gifts. They didn't really need to have, they weren't materialistic people that wanted to have, the fanciest tent and the fanciest best camels and all that kind of stuff. They only appreciated wealth in the manner of how can we need to serve Hashem, we need to do what we can to spread Hashem's message, so we need the means to do that. And if that means, we need the money to have guests and then teach the guests to thank Hashem, so we need those provisions. And that's really what they cared about. So also was in a spiritual sense, it was through Sarah that the sparks of holiness in Egypt were retrieved. By Paro giving Avram these gifts, and I'll discuss it and I'll explain it more at the end, that these gifts are now being used to serve Hashem, and the true essence, the sparks of holiness that are hidden inside these things from Egypt are brought out, are brought into holiness, are transformed to holiness. And this is a pre-game for the Jewish people who would end up in Egypt, and they had to do the same things. They had to go to Egypt, and they were slaves and they had to work really hard, but by doing so, they brought out the hidden sparks of godliness that were fallen to Egypt when God created the world. And in general, okay, so now let's discuss something else. So in general, a woman is really more on the practical ends of things, meaning she deals more with the home, with the house, cleaning, cooking, whatever it is, all the basics, making sure everything's running and this and that. A man is more usually kind of like doing his business or out, in the world, but he's not down in the practical, he might have these, whatever it is, he's not really down in that practical level of operating a household. So when the woman's working and the man, maybe could be learning Torah or speaking, having intellectual pursuits. And so you see more in the open that he has he has this Torah knowledge or wisdom or this holiness about him. But a woman, the guy's going to shul to pray, right, to be in the minyan, the woman might be changing diapers, and that doesn't seem very holy. So the woman is operating in a divine concealment, okay? Similarly to Egypt. She's living a very materialistic lifestyle, but she has to do some, basic, housekeeping, literally and figuratively, in the day aspects, but by doing those very material, very basic things, she's bringing the sparks of holiness that are embedded in the mundane out, and she's transforming them and elevating them. So Sarah was able to go to Egypt. So she was in a higher spiritual plane than Abraham, meaning, first of all, so when they were going down to Egypt, he was actually a little scared that something would happen, that, in a spiritual sense, that they'd fall down spiritually, in a spiritual sense. In a physical sense, that something would happen to Sarah, that she would get harmed there. But Sarah was not scared. Sarah was able to go to Egypt, be in Pharaoh's palace, which is a very low place. And instead of getting harmed, or instead of, morally, being degraded or getting, in a lower spiritual stance there, it was the opposite. She totally did not get affected by her surroundings there. Hashem, protected her. She didn't get harmed in any way. She didn't get touched in any way. And because she was there in the heart of the lowliness of Egypt, she was able to retrieve those holy sparks that were hidden in such a filthy place. And so Avram, on account of Sarah, got these quote unquote gifts. He was able to get those spiritual sparks, that was holy sparks, and bring them back with him, and then uplifted him. So she never, descended in holiness going into Egypt. He did a little bit, but then when they came out, Then they both ascended even more, but he like had descended and then came back up. She just went even higher. And because she was used to the material and the mundane, she knew how to deal with it. She knew how to not get affected by it. So that is how Sarah is connected to this verse in the Eishes Chayil. Now, as I said, we'll talk a little bit about Chanukah, just kind of a review. So obviously the main, I'm assuming you all know this, but let's go to review. The main reason we celebrate Hanukkah is because in the times of the second Beis Hamikdash, the time of the second Holy Temple, the Greeks issued decrees against the Jews and in Israel and around, all the whatever territories where the Greeks ruled, and forbidding the Torah learning, forbidding practice of Judaism. Specifically, what they did not like was the aspects of Judaism that were not logically explained. So they didn't mind Jewish culture or something like that, or wisdom, but they did mind things that didn't have any logical sense, that were more spiritual, that were more having to do with holiness, that do it because Hashem said so type of things, like the laws of kosher, the laws of Jewish of circumcision for a baby boy, the laws of Jewish holidays going according to the moon, the Rosh Chodesh, the new moon. How could the court below decide when the new moon is? It's really scientific if the moon is, new moon or not. Shabbos they did not understand, and other such mitzvahs. They also did not understand the laws of Tuma and Tara, the laws of purity and impurity. So one of the things they did was before if a bride was engaged and she's supposed to be married, before the wedding, they would rape her. They would force her to sleep with them. And this made her go into her wedding already with a certain impurity. Now, Matasyahu, the Kohen Gadol, he was from the Hashmona'i family of Kohanim, and him and his 5 sons took a stance, and they fought back, and eventually they won. As you all know, they had to refix the Beis Hamikdash. They had to fix it up. It was a big mess. And when they did this, because of their victory, the Jews in Israel were now had another 200 years of self-reign, and 200 years of, I don't know if it's peace, full peace, but it was self-reign until the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. And that's why we celebrate Hanukkah. It gave another 200 years of the Jewish people to be able to practice the Torah mitzvahs and be able to serve in the Beis Hamikdash. Now, once we all know the story, once the Jews came back into the Beis Hamikdash, it was in shambles, and it was the 25th of Kislev, and they wanted to light the menorah, but they could not find any pure sealed cask of oil. There was plenty of unsealed casks, and that was another indication of the Greeks. They were showing, hey, why can't you use just any oil? Who cares if the seal is not on it? Who cares if it's, impure? We would call it, what's it called when you, tainted, right? When you have to go and you need to get a new piece of something, alcohol or something, a medical device, right? And it's all
Purified.
no, what's the word? The doctor's office.
Sanitized.
Right? It's totally, not there's another word for it. Okay, whatever. Anyway, so here they have all this oil that, why can't we use it? It just didn't have the seal, which now made it impure. And that's what the Greeks were trying to say. Oh, who cares if it's pure or impure? It's still the same oil. But the Jews looked and looked. They finally found one cask. They lit the menorah, which was only enough for one day, and it lasted for the 8 days till they were able to attain new freshly squeezed oil with all the rules and regulations, all the guidelines, how to make the special olive oil for the Beis Hamikdash. So because of that, we celebrate the 8 days, and every night we should rejoice, we should celebrate, and the main thing is we should publicize the miracle. Now, the number 1 mitzvah of Hanukkah is to light the menorah each of the 8 nights. So if you could do anything, try to do whatever you can to make sure to light your menorah at home. Another reason that we celebrate Hanukkah is because that's when they won the war, the 25th of Kislev. And they in Hebrew, the word Chanu, Comes from the word rest, and Chaf Hey, Chanukah ends with the letters Chaf and Hey, which equal 25. They rested on the 25th. They rested on the 25th of Kislev. Another reason why we celebrate Hanukkah is because when the Jews were in the desert, they built the Mishkan, the traveling tabernacle, and they finished it in the month of Kislev, but they didn't make the celebration in the month of Kislev to welcome the new structure. And so we commemorate that, the conclusion of building of the Mishkan, on Hanukkah too. As we know, we don't celebrate Hanukkah like a holiday like Pesach or Sukkot or Rosh Hashanah. It's you could do, you could still work, you could still do everything else you need to do, but it is a special day. It is special days. But one of the things we will not do on Hanukkah is to fast. If for some reason someone wants to fast, take on a fast day for themselves, we do not do that on Hanukkah. And although we work on Hanukkah, when the candles are lit, at least the first half hour, women do not do work. So women need to rest. So you've got to make your latkes, do them before you light the candles. Okay. Why is that? Because women especially were happy when the Greeks were defeated, because now, till now they were getting abused, molested, before, and now they were safe again. So they were very happy that the Greeks couldn't touch them anymore. And number two is that they say the miracle of the deliverance happened through a woman. You've heard the story of Yehudis. She was a beautiful daughter of Yochanan, the Kohen Gadol, and the general wanted her, and so she went to him, and she brought cheese, and she fed him cheese. He got very thirsty. She gave him wine. He fell asleep, and then she took his sword and chopped off his head and put it at the walls of Jerusalem. And when his soldiers came back, they panicked and they ran away. And because of that, they were able to get the upper hand and drive the Greeks out. And so because of the story of Yehudis, there is a custom to eat dairy on Hanukkah. Okay, now we're going to get to how to light. What?
For whole 8 days to eat dairy?
No, just one day is good. Because it's also there's a custom, like there's an idea that because it's a special day, we try to eat meat, or try to eat, like, is always considered in the halacha, that when it's something festive, you try to eat a meat meal.
Right.
So yeah, either way you go, you're good.
So you should have like one completely dairy meal on maybe the first day, or it doesn't matter.
Whatever works. Yeah, whatever works for you.
Okay. Eat dairy as much as you can.
Eat dairy and have in mind, this is for Yehudis, and eat meat and have in mind, this is because we're celebrating, extra. Right. We're having some good food here.
Right.
And then eat the donuts and the latkes. Remember the oil. So whatever okay.
That's right. Put sour cream on the latkes and you've fulfilled everything.
Yeah, there you go.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually Wednesday night of Hanukkah, we'll have a little party here, whoever to come, and we'll have some good stuff. Okay.
Dude, I'm working that night.
Oh boy. Okay. Okay, so how to light. Okay, so first of all, it needs to be a real flame. So electric menorahs do not count for lighting the menorah. You cannot make a bracha on an electric menorah. Number two, if you can, the best way to light the menorah is with olive oil, because that is what they did in the Beis Hamikdash. And it makes a really good flame. It gives like a very good flame. If not olive oil, then any oil. Number two, you could also use candles, like wax candles. Make sure that it's one wick. It's not like a double wick that will create like a torch look, but it should be one wick on each light. And make sure that the candles weren't made or used for idol worship. So like, I don't think we have a problem when we're lighting our Hanukkah candles of that. Number three, the best. So if you're using a candle, obviously it comes with the wick is part of the candle. If you're using oil, the wick best would be if it was cotton, because that also burns smoothly. Number four, there is a custom. I mean, not everyone has this custom, but it's a wide custom that every single person in the house should light their own menorah if possible. And some people, do it differently, but there should at least be one menorah per household. And we always add in light. We always add candles. So I have this picture up this chart up here. You guys will get this in the mail soon, the Chabadnik. So the first night, you're going to light the candle all the way to the right. Second night, you're going to add a candle and you'll light the left one first and then the right one. But you're going to start again. You're going to set it up from the right. Third night, add the third candle, start the new candle, light the new candle first, then the second and the first, and on every single night. Each candle should stand alone, like so. You shouldn't be too close together. You should be able to tell how many lights there are, how many things are burning. So each one should have like enough space between them. Obviously, most menorahs are made that way today. The traditional way of how the menorah was lit was they would light it in the entrance ways of like their courtyards, like going to the public. Then because Jews lived in unfriendly countries for many years, it got moved inside. So many people light by the window or by a very active door in your home. Or like if you live in a high-rise building and you live high up in one of the, whatever floors, you should light it better by the door than by the window because people from the street won't be able to see it in the window. They won't be able to look up so high. Okay, so the menorah, the candles should not be below 3 hands breadth, which is about a foot from the floor, and it shouldn't be higher than 10 hands breadth, which is about 40 inches. So it should be at a good level, height level, not too high, not too low. And if you live and it should for sure, if it's above 30 feet above the ground, meaning like if you're in a high rise, you shouldn't light it by the window, but you should light it inside the house by a doorway because that's way too high. And make sure the menorahs are a straight line and they're all the same height. Because it all should be even and easy to see and easy to tell, except for the shamash, obviously. When do we light the menorah? The best time is after sunset and right before dark, like right before the 3 stars come out. Or anytime after that, or anytime from dark on. The best is if you live with other people, you should light together, or you can go to family to light. That's nice too. And you can light as long as there's people out in the street, or as long as people are up in your home. So like if you're living alone, you shouldn't light too late. You should light when there's people still like out and about. This is really important. I know a lot of the little typical candles we buy at the typical regular Hanukkah candles, they only stay lit for a half hour long. That is the minimum amount of time the menorah has to be lit, a half hour. The candles have to burn, and it should be a half hour from nightfall. So if that's the only candles you have, the regular Hanukkah candles that come 44 in a box, wait till nightfall before you light them. Or you get they have like a bigger size candle, a little bit of a thicker, bigger candle they sometimes sell, and those last a little bit longer. I don't know, 45 minutes or an hour. And just if anyone's interested, I think this Sunday at Chabad House we're having a little Hanukkah pop-up shop. If anyone wants to come by and get candles or menorah or other fun Hanukkah paraphernalia.
What time do you start? What time?
I have to look at the thing. I have to look at we sent it out an email. It was in the weekly email. I could look it up. Yeah, I can look it up when we're done. I just okay. There's the first night we say 3 blessings on the candles. One is Shachayanu, and then the rest of the nights of Hanukkah we only say the 2 blessings. We do not say the Shachayanu anymore because we already did this mitzvah once. Now another important thing about the lights on the menorah is we're not allowed to use them for anything. So you can't say, "Oh, I'll read from the lights of a menorah," or "I'll watch my thing with the lights of the menorah," whatever it is, or "I'll warm my hands up by the lights of the menorah." You can't do. They only are there to remind us of the miracle. If you want light for anything else, use something else, or you can always rely on the shamash if it's still lit. And of course, the shamash should always be noticeable by being either higher or lower or a different line, somewhere else not exactly the same height as the rest of the menorah. Okay, now two important. So if you do anything this Hanukkah, just make sure you light your menorah every night. And it's a big mitzvah to publicize the miracle of Hanukkah, and that's why we have the menorah. The menorah is traditionally lit in the shul, and the Rebbe instructed us to light menorahs in as many places as we can in public, all over the place. And that's why here in Simple Monica we have lots of menorahs in all kinds of places, and it's really it's to publicize the miracle. There's a few prayers we add in our regular prayers in Hanukkah. One is the Hallel prayer, the like praise to Hashem prayer. Another is V'al Hanisim. It's a thanks for the miracles. And the third is the Yalav Yavo prayer, which is said in the benching and in the Midah.
And Shabbos, we light the Hanukkah candles first, and then we light the Shabbat candle.
Correct. And then after Shabbos, right, we make sure Shabbos is over. We make Havdalah, and then we light the candles. Yes.
And you have to make sure that they stay lit for a little longer.
Correct.
Because we light early or something like that.
Because we're lighting them so early, we're lighting them before it's even sunset, because we have to light Shabbos candles before sunset, right? So we're lighting them really like an hour early. So they have to stay lit for an hour and a half as opposed to just a half hour. Yeah. Thank you, Shelley. Okay.
I learned that from you.
Oh, thank you. So a few lessons for women and Hanukkah. Okay. So there are many. I'm only going to bring out a little thing. Hillel, the great sage Hillel, was the one who was of the opinion that we add a candle every night of Hanukkah. We always add a light. We always try to do more. There's actually his opposing rabbi, Rabbi Shammai, who said that we light the full 8 candles the first night, then diminish every night. But we go by Hillel. We all add a candle every night. We're always trying to add more light and bring more goodness into the world. And we as women, we have a special ability to do this. We are naturally warm people, and we don't just celebrate ourselves. I think the message for us to be is to try to reach out to others this Hanukkah, get someone else to light a menorah, get someone else to come to a Hanukkah celebration, do something special for Hanukkah, let everyone feel included, let everyone celebrate, let everyone feel, have the warmth of Hanukkah and of Torah and of mitzvahs. Don't just keep it for yourself, because we need as much light in the world right now, and this is a very physical and spiritual way to add all that light. And that is the end of the class. Anyone have any questions, comments?
I just have